Okay, so let's preview this year's Six Nations. Now, obviously, England and Wales have changed coaches, and they're the teams I'm actually going to do the most focus on in this preview because, well, one is an untried coach at international level, and the other is a returning coach who has replaced the coach that replaced him. Now, in my opinion, I think France are favourites, Ireland are second favourites. I think they're head and shoulders above the other four nations. I think that was proven last year and was also proven in the autumn with how that they played. I think the French, have they peaked too soon or are they still yet to peak? That is the big question. Obviously the World Cup is being held in France this year. Ireland, again, their problem is, do they peak too soon going into a World Cup and then falling at that quarter-final stage this year will tell us a lot about where Andy Farrell has this Ireland side. Now, of course, Johnny Sexton, this is his last full international year. He will be retiring after the World Cup. So it's going to be important, I think, for Ireland possibly to rotate the fly-half position and the inside centre position, and they're going to bring some new talent on because obviously Johnny Sexton will be retiring from rugby in, 8 months' time. On the French side of things, they've got the best player in the world, Dupont. He controls that side. And yes, they brought through some other great players, and they're actually playing players in position. They actually have got an out-and-out fly-half now. I think that the issue with the French is their discipline. They still have within them a red or yellow card at any point. I think that could be their weakness. Their fitness is massively improved. Sean Edwards has done magnificent things with the fitness and the defence. Ireland, Andy Farrell, obviously with what happened at England when he was an assistant, obviously a lot of people are shouting for Andy Farrell to be the next England coach. That's obviously gone to Steve Borthwick. And so I think both those countries happy. They've got longevity with the coaches, and they've got some experienced players with some younger players coming through, and there seems to be just a production line of talent in both the French game and the Irish game. So I believe they'll be the top two. I think France will probably slightly edge it again. I think the game between those two will be the title decider, in my opinion. Now, my predictions generally are wrong on this channel, so I try not to predict anything, looking at my past predictions, but I think France, then Ireland, that would be the top two. It could be Ireland and France, but either way, they're both building towards what looks like a very tasty World Cup campaign. Can the Irish get past that quarter-final, for example? And will the Irish or French peak before the World Cup? Is the Six Nations? That's the danger. But they're building very, very nicely, and I have no real over-criticisms of how they've been playing in the last 18 months or so. Then we get to Scotland and Italy. Obviously, they haven't changed coach either. I think the Italians will be 5th or 6th, but I can see the Italians upsetting the apple cart. I can see another upset like they did against Wales. They've broken that losing streak. They've broken that losing streak away from home. So that will give these young Italian players a lot of confidence within themselves. And they also want to try and play an expansive game. They are willing to throw the ball around and run, which is refreshing to see. And then they have no fear, I think, is a good one. They will be difficult to play against. And, you know, they're under 20s, and the young players are coming through look really, really, really good. I have to admit, their youth development programme has done wonders in the last couple of years. So do not underestimate. They bring young players in. Do not underestimate the Italians. Scotland, I think I have a massive concern about Scotland with Gregor Townsend. This is a make or break time for Gregor Townsend going into this World Cup. I think a disappointing Six Nations or a disappointing World Cup, and his job is really on the line. I can't see them sacking him after this Six Nations, but I think if they do poorly, or again, inconsistency is their problem. If they're inconsistent, win one, lose one, have a bad defensive display or followed by a good defensive display, for example, if they have another inconsistent Six Nations, I think the pressure is ramped up on Gregor Townsend. I understand that the improvements Scotland have made under him, they're definitely more entertaining to watch. There's never a dull game with Scotland, in my opinion. There's always something happening. Either they lose an exciting game or they win an exciting game. They don't do boring games in Scotland. They didn't last year. The concern I have is their consistency and possibly depth. I think he's the coach under the most pressure is Gregor Townsend, in my opinion. Now we get England-Wales. So I'll start with England with Steve Borthwick. Done great at club level. There's no disputing that. He's brought his entire club staff from Leicester pretty much to a man with him, so he knows the people he's going to be working with, and he's not afraid to make some selection choices. Obviously, the Eddie Jones situation, I think Eddie Jones should possibly not have been given that contract extension. I think 2021 was a good leaving note. Yes, take for a World Cup final and then leave on a reasonable high. Obviously, with England, the last 18 months has been, in my opinion, a disappointment. But out with the old, in with the new. I'm hoping Steve Borthwick will have a better relationship with the media, less prickly, more honest, I would say, and more approachable. I think that was an issue with Eddie Jones, was some of the media mind games I think didn't help. Also, let's see how his tactics play out. Let's see who his starting fly half is. Let's see who the starting inside centre is. Let's see who the starting front row, because he's willing to make selection choices. The team that he selects on match day 1 will not be the team he selects on match day 5. There are going to be changes with this side because he's got to figure out his own starting 15 and then the rest of his squad for a World Cup. So this is a transition Six Nations for England. I don't think they'll be as bad as last year, but he's unproven at test level. And this can be a graveyard of coaches who've been really good at club level and just haven't transitioned to that international style of play, bearing in mind, obviously he'll know those Leicester players really, really well. Their personality traits, their likes, their dislikes, what they're good at, what their weaknesses are, and then they'll obviously know his style of play and his game plan. It's the players from the other clubs that he's got to try and fit into a system that suits the squad. And I think that's where Wales, under Wayne Pivac, went wrong. Now, they've brought back Warren Gatland, which is very, very interesting, in my opinion. Yes, he was very successful as Welsh coach. There's one big difference with this Warren Gatland setup. There's no Shaun Edwards. So it'll be interesting to see, on the defensive side of things, how Wales perform without that assistant to Warren Gatland. Now, yes, there is no doubt on his ability as a coach and what he's achieved as a coach, but a lot has happened and a lot has changed in 3.5 years since he was last at the helm in 2019. He was part of the reason why Wayne Pivac is selected as his successor. He had a big imprint on that selection. And another thing with England and Wales, and this is two unions in crisis, in my opinion. Wales, obviously, the club game has money problems. Same with England. Obviously, that has been a massive concern for both unions in the last year or so. The money issues, which is causing some concern, and the selection rules about how many England, you've got to play in England. Wales, it's preferred you play in Wales, although there are exceptions with players. But with the financial constraints, COVID has made those worse. But there were some concerns going into the 2019 Cup about money issues in both Wales and England. Also, England, with their attempt to reduce concussions in the community game and how the RFU have handled a few things, they're a union under a lot of pressure to make the Steve Borthwick appointment work, and they've had a bad handling of certain things with the RFU. The Welsh Rugby Union, there's a bigger scandal. The chief executive has been forced to resign, stand down. And it's to do with how they deal with complaints of harassment, bullying, sexism, etc. So Warren Gatland's coming in when the Welsh Union is really under a negative cloud. There's concerns, as I say, about the finances. And he hasn't got the same group of players that he had 3 years ago. There's been a lot of change with who he's able to select. And a lot of players from the Welsh regions have gone to play in France or England because they can earn more money. If they don't meet those criteria of exemptions to the Welsh selection rules, basically you've got to play in Wales. Some players who've been very, very handy for Wales in the past are not eligible to be selected, which is a problem. Now, I don't think Wales or England will get the wooden spoon. I think Italy's most likely to get the wooden spoon, although stranger things have happened and Italy haven't always got the wooden spoon. Let that sink in. Wales and England could be vulnerable at times, but also they could get that new coach boost. Now, a lot of the Welsh players have been coached by Gatland before, either with the Lions or when he was obviously head coach previously, which may help that transition from Pivac back to Gatland. But I do have some concerns that they may be vulnerable, in the sense that there's a reason why Warren Gatland stood down after 2019, and there's also a reason why he's been brought back. Steve Borthwick, the same. There's a reason why Eddie Jones, after that review was gone. Very surprising that very, very quickly Australia were like, we'll have him, please. And he's coached Australia before, so there's several nations that are recycling coaches. We'll see how Wales perform. Now, I'm not a fan of Warren Gatland style rugby, but it gets results. So can his pragmatic approach turn Wales's fortunes around? The Wayne Pivac era, okay, there was a Six Nations title in there. Yes, there was COVID impacted, so there's that asterisk. They won the Six Nations in 2020. Let's be clear on that. However, there have been some issues in regards to 2021, should I say? There have been some issues with that Wayne Pivac. The win percentage wasn't good enough. Some of the selections were head scratches, and obviously that Italy defeat and their autumn series were apps. I mean, the Italy defeat summed up that yes, they got some wins in there, but it was a sticking plaster, and it wasn't building momentum and building confidence. They were just sticking plasters. The Italy defeat really highlighted the issues Wales have, and then their autumn campaign was an absolute shambles. So there are a lot of issues with Wales and England to a certain extent, but I think 4 of the nations will be scrapping for 3rd place. I think France and Ireland, as I say, the clear 2 favourites. And from Scotland through to Italy, that sandwich with Wales and England in between, all that. And there's great players playing for every nation. I think this could be one of the most open Six Nations we've seen in a very long time. But my predictions generally are wrong. This is where Italy don't get a wooden spoon. This is where, Scotland show what they can do in attack and really tighten up their defence. France and Ireland may have a bit of a stinker, and Wales and England may be still not quite figuring out where they're at. We could see a very open Six Nations. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I will have some more content for you very, very soon.